Anyway, so welcome, Jorge Assef. Welcome, Ines. Ines is going to give her opening remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon also for people that are joining from other places, and good morning. Thank you so much, Jorge, for being here. So if you can put in the chat, maybe we're not seeing the chat, but where are you in the world? That would be nice, no? And after we are going to have the chat, so it's nice to know, how many people are from the different parts of the world. So thank you everyone for being here. And thank you so much, Jorge, it's an honor for us to have you in person. Yeah. So this is the second time that you are working with us. After I'm going to put in the chat or send everyone our channel, your YouTube channel, where we have the video recording previous of this one, and then this one we're going to save it there. So this activity is toward the NLS Congress that will be in May in Paris, Painful Loves. Jorge, I'm going to introduce Jorge. Assef is a psychoanalyst, member of the World Association of Psychoanalysis, of the School of Lacanian Orientation, EOL, our Argentinian school, and of the new Lacanian School, where we, Initiative Toronto, is part of or linked to. He was nominated analyst of the school from 2021 and 2024. He has a PhD in semiotics, is the academic coordinator and professor of the master program in Lacanian Psychoanalytical Theory of the National University of Cordoba. Also professor of the master program in Lacanian Clinic at the National University of San Martin in Buenos Aires. Member of the Center of Clinical Research and Studies, and he travels all over the world with a lot of demands of our schools. He's editorial director of the bilingual online journal Lapso. He's author of many books in Spanish and in English, and we'll send after some links. Also, when I send the video recording, I will send the whole publications of Jorge. So just a little note that
recording in progress.
It's being recorded.
That was a special effect.
Yeah, in the back we have our IT people. We are recording already?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, Patricia is going to moderate. So and with the help of Federica. So Patricia is going to give the word of the people that are here, and then Federica is going to be, focusing on the people on the online that if they want to participate. Okay. So first, Jorge is going to read his paper to share his work, and then after we open for conversation, discussion. Okay. Well, Jorge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. First of all, I have to say thanks for inviting me and welcoming. Thanks especially to Ines and Carlos for all that work that they do these days for give an opportunity to be working together in person. My first time here, it was not here, but it was here in any way. It was in the Zoom. I work with Initiative Toronto about the interpretation. It was a very precise topic concerning about our clinical practice. And in this time, when I talked with Ines and Carlos, we thought give another framework to this work. And so we choose the topic of love, that is not only a topic about our practice, it's a topic for everyone, touch everyone. Of course, it's very important in our practice about transference, and is a part of our practice, very, very present in our offices, because everybody is talking about love when consults some analyst, but like as Ines told before, we are in the middle of a preparation of our next Congress in the new Lacanian schools about how is in English the name of the Congress? Sorry, painful labs, and is on the way of the next Congress of WAP, WAP, about the no sexual relationship. So, okay, I thought that we could talk about love and what is love for psychoanalysis, how Lacan understand it, and also love in our era. For that reason, I put this prophetic title. I hope say anything new about it. My exposition have 4 different parts. The first part I titled the Tinder era. You say Tinder or Tinder? Okay.
Yeah.
To begin, I will tell you a story that took place in my country not long ago. In 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Argentina implemented a very strict public health policy. During those months of social isolation, several curious events occurred, one of which serves to illustrate what I want to convey today. Argentina had been in mandatory confinement for a month when one morning, during a press conference, the then Secretary of Public Health, Carla Bisotti, introduced the infectious disease specialist, Jose Barleta. The purpose was for him to explain the risk of sexual encounters given to public health situation the country was experiencing. Dr. Barleta began by acknowledging that one of the problems with preventive confinement was the sexual abstinence of people who did not share isolation with their sexual partners. He then proceeded to recommend a long list of verified virtual sexual applications that citizens could use through different electronic devices to mitigate the negative effects of the sexual isolation. Continuing his nationally broadcast explanation, Dr. Barleta went on to recommend a series of safe sexual practices for the context of sanitary isolation, hotlines, video calls, live chats, sexting, etc. He then advised citizens not to forget to wash their hands after masturbation. And at the end of his speech, he added, and I quote, "It is important to wash and disinfect keyboards, phones, sex toys, and any other object used, even if they were not shared with others." Why bring up such a distant example? I believe this example reflects how social bonds have been permitted by market logic. Even the most intimate relationships have been touched by this market logic, which Lacan referred to as the capitalist discourse, characterized by a drive toward immediate satisfaction. Today, we can confirm that contemporary subjectivity does not tolerate being deprived of satisfaction for long. The sensation of stillness, absence of stimuli, or encounter with emptiness is intolerable for the contemporary subject. In this context, waiting time, the necessary space for something to form, germinate, prosper, and develop, is experienced with great anxiety, This directly affects matters of love because love requires emptiness and time. That is why in a famous passage from his seminar known as I Speak to the Walls, Lacan refers to the link between love and market logic, stating, I quote, "Any discourse related to capitalism leaves aside what we simply call matters of love."
Jamie, move.
When psychoanalysis speaks of capitalist discourse, it is not engaging in political theory, but characterize a mode of functioning, an organization of language and human practices that predominate in the Western world. As Freud wisely stated when he said that all individual psychology is first social psychology, Lacan teaches us that a subject is above all an effect of the discourse of their culture. Indeed, the culture and social discourse in which a subject develops strongly determine the possibilities and limits of their subjectivity. The capitalist discourse and the market society leaves their mark on contemporary ways of life and influence how subjects experience different aspects of life. Love is no exception. Three key aspects of capitalist discourse: the symbolic organization that determines human practice and that we call the capitalist discourse is characterized by three fundamental elements. The priority given to the consumer object. Two, the imperative to multiply bodily enjoyment experience. Three, the predominance of images. A major shift in hegemonic discourse at the end of the last century occurred when the capitalist production system transformed into consumer capitalism. This new social dynamic promoted a subjective style oriented primarily by the experience of consumption. Consumption itself became the objective. The subject consumes the act of consumption itself, an experience that always needs renewal. It does not matter whether one purchases risk and adrenaline, gourmet luxury, or spa and wellness experiences. The market creates demand and everything is for sale. Lacan foresaw early on the trajectory civilization world would take. That is why in 1970 radio interview, he stated, "It would suffice for the object I call A to rise to the social zenith, because when one no longer knows to which sign to turn, one buys anything." Thank you. Thus, we must consider what kinds of symptoms or subjective phenomena this new symbolic order promotes. The first thing we observe in our clinical practice is the rampant multiplication of addictions. An addiction is consumption behavior taken to the extreme, a subject's dependence on a particular market offered object, whether legal or illegal. Lacan also warned that this would be a subjective effect of what he called the rise of the object to the zenith. 4 years after using that expression, in a press conference in Rome, he stated, I quote, "So far, all we have as a result are gadgets. A rocket is sent to the moon. We have television, etc. These things consume us, but they do so by stirring something within us. That is why television is so devouring." He revisited this idea the following day in a newspaper interview. I quote, "There are some shocking things that consume everything around us, like television, something that regularly devours many of us, but this only happens because too many people allow themselves to be consumed to the point of taking a real interest in what they watch." Clearly, what Lacan said about TV could today be said about any social network. We see subjects establishing a highly personal relationship with their smartphone screens, mesmerized for hours by Instagram Reels without really watching anything, hypnotized by puppies playing with yarn, celebrity plastic surgery, transformation, car crashes, television panel debates, exotic marriage proposals, etc. Any trending topic became a black hole that captured the gaze and leaves the body slanted on the couch for hours. The same dynamic often applies to dating apps. Subjects scroll through profiles just as a shopper searches for the best deal on Amazon, comparing prices and reading reviews. Soon, they will not even need to swipe, as new technology is being developed that follows eyes movement to make selections. This dynamic fosters an insatiable pursuit of satisfaction. As the Rolling Stone lyric says, "I can get no satisfaction." The contemporary subject is always searching for just a little more. This drive for enjoyment leads us to dysregulated forms of various disorders such as obesity, bulimia, vigorexia, and gambling addiction, for example. And all of this is reinforced by the fact that consumption primarily enters through the eyes, fuel the exaggeration and cult of the image, which is also the foundation of dating apps. These three factors, the rise of the consumer object to the social zenith, the drive towards enjoyment, and the cult of the image, play a decisive role in shaping how contemporary subjects relate to one another. This influence extends not only to dating or sexual encounter application, but also to broader social media platforms like Instagram or Facebook, where individuals carefully calculate which aspects of themselves and their life showcase to the world and which image to hide, edit, or even erase. Marie-Hélène Proust states, "Capitalism has triumphed, and each one alone is a commodity like any other. I am for sale, you are for sale, they are for sale. To sell, to be sold, to sell oneself, 3 modes of drive. Where submission once stood, prostitution has emerged. Previously, its domain was limited to sexual acts and women. But now it has spread to all human transactions regardless of gender. Each person is, for everyone else, their own pimp. Now, let us consider how these three factors, the rise of the consumer object or satisfaction, the prevalence of image, and the imperative to multiply bodily enjoyment experience, come into play, specifically within the realm of love life. What the contemporary subject prioritizes is the satisfaction of consumption, the enjoyment of their own body, and the narcissism over the possibility of truly getting to know someone. However, knowing someone is a process that requires time to adjust, to be disappointed, to be disillusioned, to discover, to be surprised, and a series of effects and experiences that can only unfold with time. Lacan used to say, time is needed to become being. Today we may say, time is needed for love. Without this time and without the empty space required for the necessary condition of an encounter to develop, it becomes extremely difficult for love to emerge. Faced with this generalized situation, subjects attempt to force love encounters, believing they can control, provoke, manipulate, or promote them. This is where dating apps come into play, operating according to market logic, even if this is not always evident. Again, Marie-Hélène Proust effectively summarized this issue when she lists the stereotypes at play in today's search for partner through dating apps. I quote, competition, categorization by gender, age, physically and psychological traits, self-fantasies and/or fantasies about the partners, labels, expiration dates, frantic searches for the ideal product, falling into oblivion, sales, good deals, recycling, pseudonyms, and consequently anonymity are the norm. Indeed, today we hear from analysants who, before even leaving their homes, stalk potential candidates on social medias. It is increasingly rare to meet for a coffee or dinner as a first date, as real-life encounters are now often preceded by extensive online research, browsing through Instagram photos, Spotify playlists, and other digital traces left on the internet. If the candidate passes the investigation stage and mutual interest is confirmed, a match occurs. This digital match, a flame emoji, a heart icon, an invitation to chat, is not taken too seriously because from that moment on, even if both parties fantasize about having a crush or identify as demisexual, those who requires an emotional connection before engaging in a sexual activity. The most common outcome is that after the first encounter, one of them disappears, does not respond to messages, does not call back, and follows the other on social media, or the ultimate sin, block them entirely. This is a common complaint among analysants suffering in the realm of love today. We could say that Freud hysterics once suffered from a lack of encounters due to sexual repression, followed by hysterics who suffer from the banality of encounter focused solely on sex. Today, contemporary hysteria suffers from ghosting, from subjects they do not even get to know because there is almost no symbolic exchange. It is all too fast and precarious. One encounter and they vanish. Sometimes there is not even a meeting. Everything seemed fine during chat exchanges, and suddenly silence. A week of chatting, everything following well, and then no more replies. The contemporary subjects, disorientations, regarding love is far greater today than it was 25 years ago. In the early 2000s, fictional characters like Bridget Jones or Carrie Bradshaw represented romantic dissatisfaction and blamed men for their lack of commitment. Today, both men and women, regardless of whether they are heterosexual, homosexual, or bisexual, suffer from disorientation. Most individuals who seek therapy do not complain about difficulties in finding sex. Sexual satisfaction seems more readily available in an era that prioritizes bodily enjoyment over anything else. The problem arises when they attempt to go farther, when they experience disconnection, disagreement, and loneliness. At the same time, we are not saying that the pursuit of immediate satisfaction does not create complications. For instance, a young man recently came to see me. The first thing he told me was that he wanted to treat his sex addiction. When I asked him what that addiction entailed, he said he spent the entire day connected to various dating platforms seeking encounter of any kind. He also participates in multiple online masturbation groups and spends hours watching pornography. This routine kept him locked in his house, consume much of his time, and affect his work performance. He was struggling to meet the deadline at his job. As I questioned him further, I focused more on his isolation than his compulsive sexual consumption. Eventually, he identified his significant difficulty in connecting with others, his lack of friends, his struggles in approaching people, his fear of rejection, and the lasting marks of childhood bullying. Quickly, the reason for his consultation shifted from sexual addiction to a more phobic problem with a depressive background. His sexual consumption was his way of escaping anguish, which of course resolved nothing, only distracted him temporarily, before that practice itself became unbearable, but it was not the cause of his problem. If Lacan states that the capitalist discourse leaves aside the thing of love, it is because for love to emerge and develop, the subject must not be overwhelmed by consumption of any kind. When Lacan said that the alcoholic is married to the bottle, he meant that any addictive attachment to a consumer object isolate the subject. Yesterday, I went with Carlos with that fantastic gallery that you have here, the Ontario Art Gallery, and we walk around, and I found. Do you remember the bottle? Do you remember the floor? No, or the artist? No, and the floor?
Yes, first floor.
In the first floor, it was an Inuit.
It was an original exhibition. Yeah.
The original exhibition. It was a very, very interesting.
Piece.
Piece. Thank you. Obra is piece. It was a very interesting piece. It was a bottle, like a whiskey or any liquor, I don't know, with a man inside, completely crushed, like a, ¿cómo es desmayado?
Fainted.
Fainted, okay. Going out of the bottle. That remind me this sentence of Lacan. The alcoholic is married to the bottle. The subject becomes closed off, locked inside with their autoerotic object. Whether it is food, drugs, video games, or social medias, that subject disconnects from others and solely seeks enjoyment from their autoerotic object. Interestingly, dating platforms supposedly designated to help subjects interact, meet, and perhaps fall in love, can become just as addictive and autoerotic as any drug. In that space, love has not real possibility because the subject is too preoccupied with consuming these platforms, whether in pursuit of an ever more sophisticated erotic fantasy or the perfect candidate. The result is a saturation that leaves no room for the circulation of desire and thus does not foster a real encounter with another person. The promises of an ideal match, an instant gratification generated by dating apps makes people forget that a real encounter with another human being is never perfect, never complete, and often leaves dissatisfaction. But love arises precisely from these loose ends, from what does not perfectly fit into the puzzle. When someone meets another person expecting them to fulfill everything they ever dreamed of or thought they needed, discovering that this is not the case, that the other is always lacking something, and so is oneself, can lead to either running off to search for a new candidate on the app or taking time to see what emerges from that lack. Sometimes it is irreparable, but other times from what is missing, something new is built between two people. Lacan put it beautifully in Seminar 7, I quote, "Between these two terms that constitute, in essence, the lover and the beloved, you will observe that there is no coincidence. What one lacks is not hidden within the other. That is the whole problem of love. One can only love if one acts as if they do not have it, even if they do. Love as a response implies mastering the act of not having. Indeed, for psychoanalysis, the possibility of love arises from what is not ideal, perfect, complete, or absolute. The romanticized idea of love, the initial infatuation where lovers see stars, lasts for a time. That is what we call falling in love. Love, however, emerges from the construction lovers can create beyond infatuation. We will now expand on this further. Now that I am hearing me, I am thinking while I was reading that maybe what I said about dating platform can become just an addictive and erotic as any drug, blah blah. Is one part of the problem, because, for example, sometimes I receive patients who ask me, it would be a good idea if I use Tinder, and I said yes, no? Because it's not everything like that. No, I think dating platforms now is one of the most important ways to find people. People connect with other people. It's not everything bad. I want to clarify that I am taking the worst part of the situation, because it's the part that we receive in our, but we receive also, no, because I receive also patients who have crashes by internet and have a good relationships there and whatever. But I focused in the problems that causes for that kind of use. That is not the use for connect someone or meet someone, is the use like an addictive form, and also the use that some people do for this kind of applications exactly for not meet people. No? Is a way to escape of the meeting also. Okay, so we have two sides. Handmade solutions. Handmade solutions. Okay. Now I was I was thinking handmade is artesanía.
Artisanal, handcrafted.
Handcraft.
Hardcraft. So handmade is not exist.
It's a synonym. It
What
is.
do you wanna say?
But
You
better
mean
is-
customized?
Okay,
I like
handcraft is better.
Handcraft, yeah,
Okay.
or craft, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But handmade works.
Handmade works.
Okay. Handmade.
Hecho a mano.
Feitas con
Handmade of works. Handmade works.
Es de hecho a mano.
Sí.
Okay.
It's okay use handmade.
Yeah.
Okay, handmade. Okay.
You are.
Okay. Thank you for the English class.
That's okay.
Freud was ahead of his time, a revolutionary to many of the things he said. Among them, the great epistemological break he introduced was precisely the idea that the sexual drive is not naturally linked to its object of satisfaction. This discovery dates back to 1905. And since then, psychoanalysis has understood that in the realms of sexuality and love, there is no normality or natural order. For psychoanalysis, each subject chooses their love object based on the marks of their life. The erotizing traces on their body produced during childhood and puberty. These marks determine not only sexual choice, but also gender identification. It is a matter of a subject's psychosexual development that allows them to recognize themselves as a man or a woman and to construct their own meaning of what that entails. Similarly, it is a matter of psychosexual development that leads someone to choose a particular person as a partner. Freud's discovery also revealed that if there is no natural union between drive and object, there is no complementarity either. There is no perfect key that fits exactly into a matching lock. There is always a reminder, a trace that these pieces do not fit together completely. Because this gap always remains, Freud, instead of using the word union to define the relationship between drive and object, used the word welding. A weld leaves a mark of fusion, indicating that these two parts were not originally one. 50 years after Freud, Lacan arrived. He developed a series of formulations to express in his own language that Freud had taught. One of these is the famous "there is no sexual relationship," meaning that two do not become one. This idea shattered any remaining myths, romanticism, and illusions of completeness in love. The notion of the other half, or soulmate, which had fueled centuries of love idealization in West, from fairy tales to Hollywood films, was completely dismantled. Now the question arises, if there is no sexual relationship, what can we expect from an encounter with another? Lacan offers several answers to this question in his work. One of them is quite amusing. In Seminar 9, when addressing this issue, he asks, if we don't have the key to a love encounter, what do we do? He answered, let the cosmonauts provide the erotic solution. But Lacan is not always so ironic when addressing the real. 10 years later, he offers another response, stating that the erotic of the future will have to rely on handmade solutions. Now, handmade is fine. Okay, handmade solutions. I really like this answer. We could say, in the face of there is no sexual relationship, what remains are handmade responses. I am not sure how exactly to translate artisanal handmade into English because in Spanish it carries multiple meanings. Primarily, it refers to what a subject can invent using whatever they have at hand, artisanal, handcrafted. So in the absence of something, something new is created from what is available. It is something new, but made with what was already there. It does not emerge from nothing. Now, let's turn to some of Lacan's core theoretical concepts to better understand how the subject plays a role, object A plays a role in love. I promise this part will be short. 2 pages, just all. Let's start. Since Seminar 7, Lacan attempts to articulate the field of language. Everything that can be named, everything the subject can speak about. With the field of jouissance, the satisfaction of the drive, that which is felt in the body and is extremely difficult to describe because every time we try to explain it, it slips away. Lacan observes that these two fields can never fully integrate it and that there is always an excess of jouissance that cannot be symbolized. In the realm of love, that reminder, that which cannot be fully symbolized but plays a role in romantic life, is what we call object A. Object A represents, on the one hand, what we experience as that which we lack to feel complete, and on the other, something we project onto the other, believing that it is the other who possesses this missing piece. Thus, if we can get the other to love us, we may obtain the sense of completeness. In Seminar 7, Lacan teaches us that for the subject, object A is contained within the field of the other. That is why Lacan introduces for the first time the term vacuole, a histological reference to an encapsulated foreign body lodged within a tissue of different composition. Several years later, in Seminar 11, Lacan refines this idea with the following formula. I love you, but because inexplicably I love in you something more than you, the object A, I mutilate you. In that inexplicably lies the fundamental condition Lacan attributes to love, because, as Miller explains, is not based on the evidence of experience, but rather on the positing of an object beyond symbolization. What interests us in all this understanding how, throughout his teaching, Lacan attempts to represent something that cannot be fully symbolized, what he calls object A. This object A is experienced by the subject as that which they lack, and therefore they seek it constantly. In the other of culture, the other of society, the other who offers consumer objects, and also in the other of love. With the formula from Seminar 11, Lacan shows how the subject in relation to the other always tries to capture this object A or this vacuole within the other of love. But because object A can never be fully grasped or named, this pursuit is endless, often becoming the root of jealousy, uncontrollable demands, fights, and even violence in relationships. If we fast forward 9 years, we see a shift from the in you something more than you of seminar 11 to a tale that Lacan recounts in seminar 20. The story of a parrot in love with Picasso, evidenced by how it nibbled at his collar. Lacan says, indeed, the parrot was in love with what is essential to man, is tired, enjoying a body when there is no longer a garment leaves intact the question of what constitutes the other, that is identification. The same applies to everything concerning love. The habit loves the monk, for that is why they are not more than one. In other words, what lies beneath the habit may be nothing more than that reminder I call Object A. As we can see, in 1970s, the Object A remains, for Lacan, the very foundation of the love bond. Subjects meet and choose each other. Cupid's arrow strikes, but this happens beyond what can be said, beyond any social media profile, beyond what can be understood. True love at first sight occurs at the level of the unconscious. In terms of object like logic, once love at first sight has occurred, subjects often demand that the other provide what they lack. This is the cycle of demand that so profoundly affects love life. This demand for completeness is also what makes dating apps so problematic. These platforms construct an idealized notion of love that reinforces this neurotic tendency, following the logic of the market, as we explained earlier. Psychoanalysis understands that this is a structural issue of neurosis. We all easily fall into this trap because, by structure, we all seek in the other the object we lack. The problem arises when love is reduced solely to this, when it becomes a relentless demand for completeness or total satisfaction. At that point, life turns into drama. What does psychoanalysis offer? We have been exploring Lacan's position, sometimes ironic, sometimes serious, but let's take it one step further to conclude. Then my last point is inventing a more dignified love. In this final part of my reading, I would like to highlight two fundamental points regarding what psychoanalysis can contribute to a subject's love life. The first point derives from a reference in Lacan's Seminar 21, which revolves around the notion of invention. These concepts interest me because invention is a new path Lacan opens for thinking about love in our time, directly related to the artisanal solution we discussed earlier. Speaking of invention means recognizing from the outset that where something is invented, it is either because nothing existed before or what was there did not work. The notion of invention is often closely related to science, or what was there did not work. The notion of invention is often closely related to science. The world of technical invention is an ever surprising universe. That is why invention is commonly linked to knowledge. Invention tends to emerge where there is no established knowledge yet. On this point, Jacqueline Miller states, when it comes to knowledge in the real, one can speak of discovery, whereas the knowledge at play in psychoanalysis corresponds to the verb to invent. Let's examine the significance of this statement. Discovery implies that something already exists beforehand, which is why Lacan asserts that there is knowledge in the real. And this there is underpins discovery. Conversely, there is no sexual relation provides the foundation for what is invented. In the realm we are dealing with today, love, we might consider that knowledge in the real is the specific mating call of a felin, the plumage displayed by a goose, or the changing color of a reptile. There are precise signals indicating sexual readiness for mating among animals of the same species. For instance, it is a knowledge in the real that certain birds during mating season send an unequivocal message to their opposite sex counterparts, signaling that the time for copulating has arrived. Human beings do not possess such knowledge in the real, not even though language. If global campaign must be conducted to explain that no means no to prevent situation of abuse, it is evident that not even language suffices to establish knowledge about sex. We do not have a formula, a key, or a designated sign that provide us with knowledge about sexuality. And this is precisely the only knowledge we achieve in this field, a knowledge that Lacan summarized with the formula, there is no sexual relation. That is, in sexuality, there is no perfect fit, no total satisfaction, and no seamless connection. There is always something excessive or missing, always slightly out of sync, out of step. What works for one subject does not work in the same way for another. Among human beings, one cannot form a set as one can with birds. Each individual is different, no one possessing the same plumage, nor responding identically to another's. This is why in the domain of sexuality and love life among human beings, it is not a matter of knowledge, but a possible invention. An invention that will never fully or entirely satisfy us, always requiring maintenance, adjustments, and refinements to keep it stable. On this point, I return to Miller's words. this time from an intervention on France Culture radio, where he states, in the absence of a programmed sexual relationship, a mode of relating is inventing in which each person manages best they cannot without a certain failure. This perspective is also particularly interesting because if invention necessarily includes an element of a certain failure, it means there is no ideal or normal model of invention. In love, psychoanalysts do not expect any normality. There is no room for psychological arguments, no perfect solution, only possible arrangements that each subject finds for living life. And from that point, they construct their own style of forming a couple with the sexual object they choose and the erotic condition that bring them enjoyment. This is the path opened by Lacan's later teaching, and I believe it is the door through which psychoanalysts entered to the 21st century. Not by submitting to the imposition of the capitalist discourse, but by accommodating and facilitating the singular arrangements that each subject finds for their love life. I also think this is why Miller stated in 2020 conference in Russia that Lacan is a 21st century thinker, because some things we experience today as novelties of our time can be understood and addresses using the tool Lacan identified, tools from which we still have much to learn. I said I wanted to highlight 2 points before concluding. The first was the question of invention. The second derives from the passage in Lacan's L'Étourdi, where we read, let us call heterosexual by definition whoever loves women, regardless of their own sex. I said, love not be promised to them through a relationship that does not exist. First, Lacan differentiates between love and the situation of being promised to another, since such a promise often takes on the traditional trappings of institutions that attempt to turn love into a romantic novel or a guarantee, such as a marriage. But what is most interesting is that Lacan emphasized that, regardless of the sex or gender of the couple, love is the disposition by which the subject who loves can tolerate the hetero side, the point of otherness, the point of difference found in the beloved. This difference in Lacan's theoretical architecture is represented by the feminine. In the Lacanian theory, when we speak of the masculine or the phallic, we usually refer to a tendency toward sameness, uniformity, and universality. Meanwhile, the feminine refers to that which deviates from the universal, to what is different. To love the feminine in the other, regardless of whether they are a man or a woman, to love their feminine side means, in psychoanalysis, to love what is most different about the other. It is to love what for me is radically different into the other. Lacan opens a path here that he will continue developing in later years. For example, in seminar 21st, he described love as the connectivity between two bodies of knowledge insofar as they are irredeemably different. Finally, in one of his last seminars, seminar 24, Lacan offered a new definition of love, saying that love is void. This metaphor maintains the idea that love is built from what is not there. That is why we previously stated that the only way to think about love among humans is through invention. This unique invention for each subject includes knowing how to manage a certain failure, since the union between two subjects is never total or perfect. This point of imperfection is related to the fact that the other always carry a radical difference. When Lacan speaks of psychoanalysis allowing a subject to access a more dignified love, he is referring to this artisanal solution that each person finds to construct a relationship with another. This more dignified way of loving another brings satisfaction and happiness, but it does not seek to completely suture subjective division. There is no complete encounter, no absolute complementarity, because the dignity of love consists precisely in accommodating the difference of the other. To be able to love the other in their full dimension, including what is radically different about them for me, is Lacan's proposal for a love that can go beyond a mere match.
Thank you, Jorge. That was a very interesting, rich talk. I will try to do something before we go into Q&A. I was very, first of all, thank you for bringing the pandemic, an example of the pandemic, because I think that joined us globally, and we have a point of connection there. I found really interesting the final phrase of the public policy coming from a public health official saying, wash all the objects. And it's like of the objects of use, right? And then I was thinking, well, except for objet A, which is unwashable. So then, of course, I went into a rabbit hole in my mind and I had to come back because I was scrolling. So I'm not going to take you there. Another thing, so from that point, you kind of introduce a very important differentiation between capitalism and advanced capitalism. And capitalism, where the means of production, including the labor force, are at the core of the social interaction and symbolic interaction. And then advanced capitalism, where consumption becomes the norm. And almost I could say, and I'm venturing this way, that consumption with no symbolic interaction, which is kind of like what you propose eventually, that there's no symbolic exchange. Very interesting move when you talk about this advanced capitalism with these three concepts: the rise of the object as in the social zenith, the drive towards enjoyment, and the cult of the image. And the image of the bottle is kind of like we get caught in this image and we're swallowed by the object and we become objects of ourselves. And so there's no other. what advanced capitalism with no production is leaving us with is basically turning ourselves into products of ourselves. And I love that sentence about the pimp. We're our own pimps. And
It's from Marie-Hélène Proust.
yeah, but you brought it, so curators get also like an acknowledgement. So yeah, it was a good phrase there. And so then in a very Lacanian and then of course in a very Freudian way, you bring the beyond. Like the beyond is always our exit point to kind of, because we are part of the system, we are not outside capitalism. We are not outside this. We all have our gadgets. I see all of us having a gadget with us. So we are not outside, but with this beyond, we kind of position ourselves kind of like sideways, kind of like obliquously to the object, and we can see something else and imagine something else. And I really appreciate that move to the handmade. Of course, there's a reference here in Canada with Handmaid's Tale, which is Margaret Atwood's show. And it's like it's spelled differently. So I also went into a rabbit hole, but I'm coming back. I'm not gonna take you there. My own excesses. And then you take us to this kind of like conceptualizing objet art.
You said A or A?
A.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Because you said A.
Yeah, objet art, object A. You got it. So my object A, it is quite interesting because you move into different moments in Lacan to talk about this. And what is interesting about seminar 20 and afterwards is that the remainder is the remainder. There's nothing we can do with the remainder, even if we get caught into capitalism and we're objects of ourselves and we're pimping ourselves or whatever, there's always a remainder. That's why people come to us and say, I can't find love. I have Tinder, I have 10 applications, I have this system and it's not working. So this is where we stand. And it's not working because there's a remainder, it's not working. And this is where you bring the invention. And with invention comes this kind of possibility of doing with what we have, doing something. And here you take us to something that only works for the person who's doing it, that is not commercial, that cannot be sold, that cannot be categorized. And that's how you take us to the side of the feminine, to the side of difference. I really appreciate that. And yes, love is void. Not love is blind, which is different. Okay, so that's kind of like my little kind of synthesis. I don't know if you want to comment on that, and then we can open.
Thank you. Thank you for your synthesis. Very make me happy because you catch what your synthesis make me the idea that what I try to tell you is catch it. Thank you so much. I want to say something about yes, that sentence. For me, it was very, very interesting. Found this interview with Lacan, where Lacan is talking about the gadgets and the way that he says there are some shocking things that consume everything around us. No, the way that Lacan put in the other way the situation with the consumption, thank you, with the consumption, the way that he began to start to talk about the social situation, and they talk about the rockets and the television and wash machine, and they talk about, he says he gives a lot of examples, but at the end he says that consume us. And in that moment, it was the years 70s, I think, 1974. He used many times the example of the television. Maybe the television is a very good example because we are creatures. I'm going to say in Spanish. Somos criaturas de la imagen, ¿no? De la mirada. How I can say that in English?
Creatures of the gaze.
Sorry?
Creatures of the gaze.
Creatures of the gaze. No. Our gaze, the scopic drive is maybe the most important drive, the scopic and the oral in this time, because all the objects that offer for consumption first is offered by images. And Lacan used that example of the television for saying the people could watch for hours something that, even if not interested in that, so it's captured for the image, not for anything. Nothing is very important what is in play at the play in the image that the people watch. I think I agree with you, and thanks for the what you say about the word beyond. When we have to talk like we are, the psychoanalysts works with the waste of the system. So finally, we receive in our offices the rests of all this world of technology and whatever produce. Maybe for that reason, we focus, or I focus in this point, in the problems that produce this kind of technology and this kind of consumption products, whatever. Maybe if I would be an engineer, thank you, or a scientific in technology, whatever, I could be here talking about the benefits. But like a human being, I enjoy the benefits, but like psychoanalyst, I receive usually the waste of the problems that any social system or culture produce. For that reason, I said in the Freud's time, the problem was the repression. And now, if we visit Vienna, we love visit the CC Palace and see the Rococo architecture, and we enjoy very much all that promenades and gardens perfectly constructed and whatever. But we forget that all that is part of a very repressive system in that era, and the CC dress with the corset and all that, it was part of a repressive way of living the sexuality, and Freud received the waste of that system, of that culture. Finally, the psychoanalysts are in charge of that part of the culture, the problems, the symptoms, the anxiety that the people cannot manage very well the discourse of his time had to manage. For that reason, I sound maybe a little bit apocalyptic in my first part of my exposition. While I was hearing me, I said, no, it's not. Everything is not so bad. Because I began to think in some patients who enjoy very well the Tinder, and some patients who ask to me what I can, because I don't know here, maybe you are more developed in these kind of things. But for example, in Argentina, some people in the ages of 40 maybe had many prejudices about use dating apps. More women than men. And avoid do or open a profile, for example. And I try to explain them that now Tinder is the new ¿cómo se dice?
Meeting place, meeting place.
Discotheque, pub, exactly. Pub. Tinder is the new pub. The people meet first there and go to the pub. So I think it is like everything, like television, like rockets, like wash machine, everything works in for that reason I take the idea of the addiction, because the problem is which kind of relationship develop this subject with this kind of object, any object. One of the new objects one of the new objects of our time is the dating apps.
So we're gonna move to questions. Carlos, Ines?
Yeah, Jorge, if any, thank you very much for the presentation. It was mind blowing in a very good way.
Thank you because you check the English.
And if any, I think your presentation is post-apocalyptic.
Okay.
And meaning that, apocalyptic is all the end is near. But I think that's why psychoanalysis is so uncomfortable for some, because it's showing what doesn't work. And I think that the premise in most of the apps is there a match out there? And if we put all people together, they're gonna find each other. And we are seeing beyond that illusion and saying, well, no, we are always at odds with others and even with oneself. So in doing so, I think that we are warned, we are cautious in the sense that, yes, this is it. You can go there, but just be aware that the match is not out there.
Yeah.
Also, I want to hear your comments about, well, there's a little gap between general heterosexual dating apps and the gay community, which was, I think, a few steps ahead in terms of, well, the ones doing dating before it was mainstream. And in that particular niche, there's even clearer the push to enjoy, even what you don't enjoy. So within the gay community is this counter, more progressive approach of, well, you shouldn't have any bias against the partner. Pretty much the bottom line, because here in North America, you will find some apps some profiles that would say, not dating this type of people from this community or from these practices.
Uh-huh.
And the activists within those communities would say that that is racist,
Mm-hmm.
implying that everyone should be able to have sex with everyone,
Mm-hmm.
because that will be the main goal in Grindr, for instance, which is the top of the sex encounters app.
Mm-hmm.
So it's well, probably what I'm bringing is this, within that, on one hand, looking for love, but on the other, this extreme push to enjoy even beyond what you should, what you enjoy. So I don't, yeah, I would like to hear your on it, if any.
Which is the question?
Well, maybe there's no question. Just elaborating on the forces that you are saying, and yes, it's even more complex. It's not just bad. It has a good side, but it's also the worst side, which is the push to enjoy, the command to enjoy.
Yes, but I am asking you if you have a question in this difference between apps, heterosexual apps, and because I don't know if Tinder is heterosexual app. I think there.
No, not now. Yes, no, it's
okay.
all apps generally are open to, but maybe what I'm saying is that we can see in the gay community what is ahead
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the movement, the logic, the display of the unfolding of the logic.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Yeah.
even less symbolic, right? It's just images.
It's less symbolic, it's more centered on images, is pure exchange.
I never thought about it, but maybe you are right in. Maybe in. I have to think more, research maybe, but it seems that in some questions related to the sexual satisfaction and the way of satisfactions that can be more trendy. No, it's not trendy. It's
Mainstream?
no, que cuando algo se pone de moda.
Trendy.
Yeah, trendy.
Ah, okay. Gay community is more está más okay, I'm going to say in Spanish because I don't found the way to explain in English. And you translate, okay? Parece que en lo que hace a los temas sexuales, la comunidad gay fuera más adelante.
It seems that
que
in
la comunidad heterosexual.
it seems that in matters of love,
No,
in
love.
matters of sex
And
satisfaction,
Sexual satisfaction ways.
where the gay community is ahead. It seems to be ahead of the heterosexual component of society.
But I am not sure if that is something that looks like or is something real, because
Yeah.
I think we have to study this story, how the gay community constituted, and why they take yes, the flag of the right to enjoy sex like they enjoy whatever, and put it outside to the other. It's like say to the other, let me enjoy the way that I like to enjoy. Maybe it's a political way of establish a position in the world. but I am not sure if they are more experienced in any practice than other. I'm going to say the same in Spanish again. No sé si ellos hacen cosas, o por supuesto, no sé si a ver, pienso que se permiten hablar más libremente de prácticas sexuales.
I think they allow themselves to speak more freely about their sexual practices,
Mostrarlas hacia
to
afuera.
show them outside to society.
Pero que muchas de esas prácticas
But many of those practices
también se hacen en parejas o personas heterosexuales.
are practices that heterosexual couples do, or heterosexual groups do.
Exactly. But I think that for political questions, they shows more and make it more visible in that way. But that is, I think, I know, we have to do our research about it, but I don't know. Really, it's my opinion. It's not a, I'm not sure.
Yeah, in any case, the fact that they engage in sexual satisfaction doesn't free them from the matters of law, because we receive that as well.
Yes, and I can say that my patients, heterosexual or homosexuals, suffer for love in the same way.
Yeah.
So maybe they go to a party for groups and take the flag of free sex and participate in different parties with different practice of with different sexual practices, whatever, and change many sexual partners in a week, whatever, but at the end, they feel the loneliness and they complain for feel alone.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're gonna move to a few more questions. Ines, then Levi, then Federica, and then Senan. Yeah, okay.
No, I just wanted, thank you, Jorge, really was amazing. No, I think that you, at the end also, there is a hope with invention.
Uh-huh.
So it's not, I
Okay.
think it's not negative, it's really amazing. And especially, I love the one that you said that this person comes from for an addiction, no? But the real problem was isolation, no? So I think that really this is, the app, no, the thing that you want to encounter, and many times it's a misencounter, no? They don't give the chance to encounter because they are very short. They look the three factors. So I think that you presented so beautiful, and very clear, no, what is happening. That is not necessarily the app or the addiction, but also this isolation, no? This look for fast. I always say that microwave culture, no? They want everything in 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. That's why psychoanalysis, I think, is so difficult in this part in North America, no? Because, we want everything in 3 sessions or 10 sessions, and they come for 2-3 sessions and they feel better, they leave because they are not, wanted to really go deep, no? So
You know that I am in my hotel here in Sheraton. It was full of people yesterday, but incredibly crowded. And I asked somebody, what is happening? And there are a very important congress this weekend in this hotel. Okay, it's about the. He told me it's about behavior, and I don't know. I thought it's something biological because in my Argentinian mind, behavior is for animal. And yesterday at evening, I began to see the people with all the people in the lobby and in the elevator with
Badge.
a
Badge.
badge here with the name, and the conference is called A New Happiness. And so for that reason, this morning I met someone and asked them what is that? And he explained that it's like a coach life, or it's a school of the life, or something like that, a life coach that in one weekend teach you to be more happy.
What are we doing here?
And I have and I participate in a cartel. I am a +1 in a cartel about how is possible psychoanalysis in North America. We are working with some people from United States, and my trade, the topic that I research is about the use of time, because for me it's very, very interesting how can manage the short sessions with people who is I am talking about Americans. I don't know how it's here, but sorry, similar.
Yeah.
But in the Americans, in the American culture, I can teach. I could teach. I see with the time that for they, every minute is the equivalent of $1. And
Time is money.
Mhm.
Time is money.
But time is money.
Yeah.
That expression exists in the whole world. But in United States, I think is in the blood. It's part of the life of the people. So I am very interested in how we could work with and because I began to understand why the post-Freudian session with the 45 minutes always works, and why Lacan is so difficult to understand, for example, no? Okay, that is about what you say.
Levi,
Levy.
Levy, sorry.
Hi, Jorge. That was a truly remarkable talk, and I'm very grateful for it. I hope that you make the paper available to us so it can be studied. I wanted to see if maybe you could say a little bit more about this dimension of time that you brought up. You talked about how time is necessary for the formation of love, and I was hoping that you might clarify that a little bit and speak to that a bit more in contrast to dating apps and social media. With that cult of the image, it seems to me that the imaginary is attenuated and that we get less of an encounter with the real. And so maybe there's a connection between this dimension of time that you were talking about and the real.
I don't hear very well.
That if you can expand on the idea that psychoanalysis needs time, love needs time.
Okay.
And that in
I do
relation to
something
dating
bad
apps.
here, so
And that in relation.
first
to
I have to fix.
dating
Okay.
apps.
About the
Psychoanalysis and time in relationship to
With-
dating apps.
statements. Okay. We come back to the time topic. I try to to explain that the question of time is a very important question for psychoanalysis, because for that reason I said that expression that you could find in radiophony. I don't know if it's in English. Radiofonia is in English or
Yes.
not? Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay. The text comes from an interview with Lacan in radio and is published with the name Radiophony in English. How is the name?
Radiophony.
Radiophony. Okay. And there in that text, Lacan says it's need time to, ¿cómo está traducido? Hace falta tiempo para hacerse al ser.
Oh, there is time for being.
For become. It needs time for
Time is
become.
needed
To become a being.
A being.
Okay, say it again.
Time is needed to become a being.
Okay. In the idea of Lacan is that a psychoanalysis needs time because, between the lapse of the time between sessions occurs the most important things. So it's impossible be analyzed in a whole weekend like the new happiness. But you could do many sessions in one weekend, but you need you need more time. I don't know how many, but you need time for cross the repressions and for unfold some identifications, for found the master signifiers that mark to you and whatever. And finally, make that signifiers, master signifiers false. I took this idea to explain that for love also we need time because the arrow of Cupid, the Cupid arrow, the first encounter, the flash, the crash, is a moment, of course, happens, and in that moment you could fall in love. But this moment is the first part of the story. Usually, it comes another moment when the other is not exactly what I imagined. And the disappointment occurs in 1 year, in 2 years, in 3, in the 7 years, I don't know, how is the name of the
Crisis.
movie?
7-year
It. Thank you. Whatever happens, this is the moment that the construction of love will be start, no? Because it's not an exactly moment, of course. I am simplifying the situation, but the partners need times to construct a relation, to build a relation, because the relation will be constructed with the stars of the first moment and also with the disappointments and the way of manage or go beyond that disappointment. And all this build needs time. What I said is that sometimes the dating apps propose to the naive, thank you. To the naive users, to the naive client, I don't know, the idea that it will be possible to find a perfect person, the person that you need in that app, reading the profile and the way that the music that the people like, or the job and the way of living or whatever. It's true, some people look the perfect profile and have one encounter, they meet once, and if something is wrong, if anything happens in the bad way, or is not what he or she expect of that meeting, goes for the next. And this is the idea that put in circulation with the dating apps. I don't think so if that happens before the dating apps was so popular like are today. For that reason, I said that in some way, the dating apps propose that you could find the other half in the first encounter, if you are a very good seeker, can I say that?
Mhm.
In the profiles, no? For that reason, people spend many times looking the profiles. Sometimes I have a patient who is lawyer, who every weekend has a date with a girl that he explore during the weekdays. And always is a new disappointment. And he's very concerned about it. And once he was talking to me about that situation, and I asked him, show me the girls that you put how
You filter for?
You match.
you
Okay.
match.
Oh, you match.
Show me in your phones. So we sit together next to and we began to see the and yes, he matched with the photo. And all the photos that he chose is like a Vogue magazine. Vogue, more sex type Vogue.
Playboy
More
magazine.
erotic.
Playboy magazine.
Claro. Not
In between.
between Playboy and Vogue.
Big way.
And of course, when he goes to the date on the Saturday night, he found a real person with cellulitis and a person
Yeah.
a real person. And but how he thinks that exists a woman like that pictures, he continue
For that.
looking for that, and is like for that reason I think the construction that Marie-Hélène Proust made with this kind his joke about how is the dating apps function like a market, a supermarket, is sometimes is completely true.
Would you be okay with taking two more questions?
Whatever you want.
Oh, great. So Sanem and Federica. Federica, you go first with your question, and then Sanem, you go next.
you answer both,
We're gonna do both questions at the same time, and then you construct your concoction.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so Federica first.
Jorge, what you brought today made me think of a few elements I wanted to ask you about. I was thinking about the position of the analyst in this new era, and the reduction I took from what you brought is something along the lines of psychoanalysis enters the 21st century through the door of the invention of handmade solutions in the feminine.
Mhm.
Is kind of what I would grab onto. And I was thinking of the role of the analyst in a session and about interpretation in that sense.
Why? You, in that,
So that also made me think of,
okay,
yes. So the position of the analyst in the era, and then the role of the analyst
okay.
in session and of interpretation. And you mentioned at the beginning that emptiness and time are necessary for love, which are symbolic, right? So in this era that aims for the consistency of the imaginary, then how can an analyst and interpretation introduce these? I was thinking about the effect of the poem of whole and sense at the same time, but I was wondering if you could say something to the effect of that. And it also made me think of transference, right? Because when we think of love, it's not only romantic love, and what affects all this in transference.
Mhm. Okay.
You okay with your question, Sanem?
Yes, thank you so much, Jorge, for this amazing talk. And hello, everyone from Vancouver. So I actually wrote my question. I put my question on the chat because, as I understand, probably there might be something wrong with the microphone and everything. But I will read it nevertheless, because what I loved so much in your presentation is when you quote Lacan from Seminar 24, "Love is void," and your articulation of this. And if I understood correctly, you articulated is like that love will always need handmade solutions, which will always be imperfect. And I want to add, they will always be incomplete, right? And I conclude two things from this. I don't know if you would agree with me, is that love refuses to be expressed as a form of relationship in the symbolic, like it's a couple, partnership, whatever. Even when we have these signifiers, we still need to invent love. That there's this element there that always needs invention, however, like expressed this is perfectly in signifying chain. And secondly, this is perhaps this is the question: how does one always work with imperfect solutions? And one has to love the handmade solutions or the imperfect solutions themselves, maybe more than love. I don't know if you would agree with this. Thank you so much.
The last part I don't understand.
The second part, do you want the text? Is there?
Oh,
You want me to read it?
Read it, because
Okay.
the
There's the last part says, how does one always work with imperfect solutions? One has to love handmade imperfect solutions themselves more than love, perhaps.
It's like that if you love your solution, what you invented.
Yeah, you have to love more the handmade solution. The invention is what you love.
No sé si entiendo, ¿me lo traducís?
The invention is the way to demonstrate love.
Ah,
Si amas más las soluciones que el amor a la persona, como que te enamoras de crear soluciones.
La solución que creas.
yo no, sí, entonces entendí bien, pero no entiendo cómo sería.
Yo tampoco.
There's no example.
Maybe Jorge, if you see an example, for instance, I have an example about el humor, the humor. The humor can be an invention, something that you use, that invention to be able to love the other person, like to maybe deal with this void or with this misunderstanding, this misencounter, no? So that you have to love, if you love the humor, for instance, that would be, but I think love in that sense is like if you like, or if you enjoy, I don't know, not more than love, I would say, that you enjoy, I don't know, because love.
I would like that
Mhm.
Salem
Salem.
give an example that what is the idea
Yeah.
that she has.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I would love the humor is a very good example in Escape, but I always love also creating imperfect solutions. I always love creating, I don't know, inventing, putting something together when nothing exists, just like you were describing with the handmade solutions.
Yeah.
So my question is, I also need to love inventing things or making things handmade so that I continue to create love.
Yes.
That is what I
Yes.
mean. Loving
Okay.
invention, maybe more also love as much as love itself, but also loving invention.
Okay, yes, I agree. Yeah. Okay, about the transference. I think I just will take that point of your question, because I think is the topic that we was talking about. Love needs time and transference also need times. And the same thing happens in the transferential relation. Because in the transferential relation, you always have good moments and bad moments. And if you leave the analysis in the moments of negative transference, for example, maybe you interrupt one of the most productive moments that you have in an analysis. No? Finally, why I start my presentation talking about love in transference and why for the psychoanalysis is very important, the love questions. Because the way of love that somebody has is put it in act in the office with the analyst in the transferential relationship. So it's a very, very important thing how we could manage the transference, and how understand what is at play in the transferential relationship with this patient for understand how the patients manage the object, how is the relation with the patient, with the object, because all what I said about, for example, the relation between the object A and the other is put at play in transference. Because the analyst will be the other where the analysants put or project the object. So everything is there in the office. And it's a very, very important thing that the analysis is not end until the relationship with the other that you put in the analyst is resolved. No? When Lacan says that the end of the analysis consists in the fall of the analyst, is because you are, and with this answer, I am answering to Brian again, when the analysts fall, when you are available to understand that he is not all that you imagine, and he has not all the answers that you need. You need make artisanal solutions also. Okay.
Okay, so I'm in charge of the closing remarks. So thank you, everybody, those here in person. Thank you, everybody, those of you online for being with us here today. Thank you, Jorge, for this wonderful presentation. I think that we all are delighted and having a lot of this rich discussion.
Look at the hearts.
Thanks.
I just want to say that,
I
well,
have
this
to
is
say
part-
like that.
Well, we are Initiative Toronto, a group committed to transmitting the Lacanian orientation in Toronto and in English-speaking Canada. This is one of our activities, as Ines mentioned, working toward the NLS Congress, which is gonna be in May 17 and 18 in Paris. So if you want to know more about our activities, feel free to reach out. And I hope to see you again, whether in our activities or hopefully in Paris. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I want to give you a little token, a little card, and give the.
Thank you, bye.
Monica does those.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And those of you want to join us for lunch, we are going to go to Escada Bush downstairs.